Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, there has been a poll. It's a UK-wide poll, and it makes some interesting reading, but particularly is what it shows in Scotland. And it shows that the SNP aren't doing as well as what they would like to think they're doing, even though they're aware of how badly they're doing. According to this poll, they're doing way worse. Now, we've got to be honest, it's not in any way particularly accurate. The polling data is basically so few that it isn't particularly an accurate poll, but it does kind of give the indication of the direction of travel. It still won't be pleasant for Humza Yousaf to read, and if it were in any way accurate, I think he'd be gone today. He certainly wouldn't be leader by the time they got to the conference. That's how bad this indication is of where the SNP have fallen. We'll see it in a second, but it is, I've got to say, you've got to take the numbers with a massive pinch of salt, of course. And it may be fantasy, but it is fun to see. So let's go and have a look at this. So a new poll puts the SNP behind the Tories in Scotland, as Humza Yousaf faces the abyss. And as they say, when you look into the abyss looks into you. But as I say, it's a UK-wide poll, and while there's enough there in terms of the spread of the poll across the number of people, for the UK-wide figures will be within the accuracy rating. For the Scottish-only part of it, it falls short on the accuracy rating. So it's very highly suspect, as I say. But it is still, nonetheless, it gives an indication, doesn't it? So a new UK-wide opinion poll puts the SNP on just 1% of the UK vote, the whole of the UK vote, which is not surprising. But only 14% of the vote in Scotland. And this is suggesting the party is on course to lose all of its MPs in the general election. But before you start cracking the champagne and laughing, let's have a look at the figures, because all is not as it seems. A new UK-wide poll has seen the SNP plunge 2 points in a week as voters respond to the party's drubbing in the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election. Humza Yousaf's party is on course to get just 1% of the UK vote. The poll by Redfield and Wilton Strategies was conducted across the whole of the country, but also included a Scottish subsection. And the usual caveats apply to the small sample size of just 180 people, which is well below the 1,000 plus normally required for a more accurate polling. So yes, it is, and it's just under a fifth of the normal number. But even so, still gives, that direction, doesn't it? The results will be another dire warning for Mr. Yousaf and his supporters ahead of the SNP conference this weekend. Now, I will say, I love the line, and his supporters. Now, the and his supporters is the important thing there, because that was a number quite some time ago, where it was quite a large number. And over time, it's been restricting and shrinking. And so now it's actually a relatively small number of supporters. Many more have abandoned him than supported him in the first place. The poll suggests that just 14% of Scots will vote for the Nats at the next general election, behind Labour on 27% and the Tories on 15%. But they are at least ahead of the Lib Dems on 12%, and of course the Greens 5%. How are 5%? I mean, how are the Greens still getting votes, given how bad they are? It goes to show that the Scottish education system has fallen so bad that there are still that many stupid people that are willing to vote for the Greens. If, and with such a small sample, it is a big if, it's a massive if, these results were repeated next year, it would see the SNP lose all of their MPs in an unprecedented wipeout. Labour would finish up with 38 MPs, almost certainly propelling Keir Starmer into Downing Street, with the Tories on 14 Scottish seats and the Lib Dems on 6. And I honestly would love to see it, but of course it's not ever going to happen. If there's any consolation for the Nats, and there may not be too much of one, It is the fact that more than 1 in 5 Scots still has to make up their mind, with 22% answering don't know when asked who they will vote for in 2024. A further 4% are already certain they will not vote at all. Well, there's no one really to vote for, but you can vote against, and that's the important thing. Redfield and Wilton Strategy's latest national Westminster voting intention poll in Great Britain finds the Labour Party, this is Britain now, not just the Scotland bit, leading by 16%, 2 points more than in the previous poll released on Monday last week. Now, that's not to say that's the 16% of the vote. That's their lead is 16%, which is a huge lead. Now, that will give them a majority. That will give them a majority at Parliament. Not a great one, but it will give them the majority. A majority, 57%, of British voters cite the economy as among the 3 most important issues that will determine how they will vote in the general election, ahead of healthcare at 52% and immigration at 30%, education at 26% and housing at 21%. It's always the economy, and it's a rule that I've always said, and I do tell people this quite a lot. And it's whenever anyone like this idiot, or any of the idiots really, tries to bring in something that people are against, and you have to look at this, and if you go through this with your life, you'll know it's true. When politics meets economics, economics always wins, because people will do anything to beat it, because people need money. And so politics always loses to economics, and it's always the way. Unfortunately, Marxists and leftists like him and the Greens don't understand that, and that is why everything they try fails, because they don't look at it in the right way. And this is what I've always said. I've not hidden this. I always say I'm slightly right of centre when it comes to money and left of centre when it comes to people, and people are always first. But when you're dealing with money, you've got to use your head, not your heart. You use your heart. Your heart is for people, your head's for money, and you've got to keep it like that. But when you get this lot who have got no heart, they've got no understanding of people, which is why they do these things, and of course they've got no understanding of money, which is why it always costs money when they fail. And that's why you need to get rid of him and his hate-filled anti-white bigotry, his pro-Hamas stand. He still hasn't come out and condemned it. And his whole sort of anti-humanity stance on everything he does. And the fact that, of course, he's a moron. Anyway, it would be grand to see the whole of the SNP wiped out. But let's be honest, it's a little bit of a pipe dream. It isn't going to happen, not on that sample size. But it does indicate the direction of travel. And I think they're going to be very, very disappointed on that Friday morning in May, assuming it's a May election. Anyway, I shall round off there. Thank you very much. I shall round off. I shall come up and we shall just finish the video. There you go. He's going into conference in Aberdeen, or just outside Aberdeen, isn't it? You'll get a bus out there. He's going up to Aberdeen though for his conference this weekend, at the end of the week. And he's sitting there with the loss. He's sitting there with the huge swing. He's looking at these polls. He's seeing people within his own party challenging him. He's seen the opprobrium and hate given to the Greens, who he's still backing. Got a video on that coming up soon, possibly next, if not the one after next. So he's got all these things going wrong for him. He's going in, he's going to have to stand in front of conference under the gaze of all these people who know that their jobs rely, I'm talking about his own backbenchers here, their jobs rely on him turning this around, and they know he's quite incapable of turning it around, and knowing that the people have had enough, and knowing that they need change. He's going to have a very, very difficult conference, and it's going to be joyous to watch. I shall stop now. Thank you very, very much for watching. I do hope that you'll hit that subscribe button. We've got another story coming up about Hamza and his views on the Greens. Like I say, it's either the next video or the one after. It all depends on how the editing goes. And until then, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Until then, goodbye.